He was addicted to his PC, so I did this. The smell of microwaved lasagna filled the air. Another Tuesday night. I stared at the swirling cheese, more fascinated by its artificial texture than the prospect of actually eating it. Mark was in his office, headset on, fingers flying across the keyboard. The usual. Remember when Tuesdays used to be our movie nights? We'd order takeout, sprawl on the couch, and argue over which terrible rom-com to subject ourselves to. Now, Tuesday was raid night according to him. A sacred, inviolable commitment to his online guild. I poked at the lasagna, the cheese now resembling hardened plastic. I missed him. Not the shell of a man who grunted responses while staring at a screen, but the Mark who used to plan surprise dates and leave me little notes in my lunch bag. The Mark I married. It started subtly. A few extra hours after work, just finishing up a project. Then the late-night gaming sessions crept in. Just unwinding after a long day. Now it was an all-consuming black hole sucking him away from me, from our life together. Last week, I'd tried. I'd walked into his office, lasagna in hand, freshly made, not microwaved. He barely looked up. Honey, can we talk? Can't pause it, babe. Big raid. He didn't even make eye contact. I stood there, lasagna cooling in my hand, feeling utterly invisible. I ended up throwing the whole thing away. Emily, my best friend, listened patiently as I ranted over lukewarm lattes at the coffee shop. You need to set boundaries, Sarah. He can't just ignore you like that. Boundaries? Right, I'd tried. I'd suggested no gaming after 10 p.m. He agreed, then conveniently lost track of time. I'd asked for one date night a week, phone-free. He canceled twice, citing urgent server issues. He's addicted, I said, stirring my latte with unnecessary force. I don't know what to do. Emily sighed. You need to fight fire with fire, show him what it feels like to be ignored. That night, I accidentally unplugged his router while he was mid-raid. He yelled. I played dumb. The silence that followed was thick with resentment. It didn't solve anything. It just made things worse. My acts of passive aggression escalated, leaving dirty dishes in his gaming area, subtly rearranging his meticulously organized keyboard, making sarcastic comments about his online friends. They were pathetic attempts to get his attention, to provoke a reaction, anything to break through the screen that separated us. Then I met Mr. Henderson, our elderly neighbor, a retired electrician with twinkling eyes and a mischievous grin. He was always tinkering with something in his garage, surrounded by wires and tools. One afternoon, while borrowing his hedge trimmer, I mentioned some flickering lights in our house. He offered to take a look. These newfangled computers, he said, shaking his head as he examined Mark's setup. They put a real strain on the electrical system. You wouldn't want any unexpected surges, now would you? I smiled, a tiny seed of an idea beginning to sprout. No, Mr. Henderson, I certainly wouldn't. Over the next few days, I subtly steered the conversation toward my electrical woes. I hinted at wanting to improve our home's wiring, emphasizing the importance of a stable power supply for sensitive equipment. Mr. Henderson listened patiently, his eyes twinkling with amusement. The plan began to take shape. It was petty, I knew, maybe even a little crazy, but I was desperate. I also hired an IT technician named Liam. I pretended to be concerned about our home network, explaining that Mark worked from home and needed a reliable connection. I subtly guided Liam to install monitoring software on Mark's PC, ostensibly to track bandwidth usage. In reality, I wanted to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. The results were horrifying. Mark spent an average of 8 hours a day glued to his PC, even on weekends. He was constantly on social media, chatting with his online friends, sharing memes, and completely ignoring me. The lies piled up, a suffocating mountain of deceit. He was living a double life, one where I barely existed. I confided in Brenda, a colleague at the design agency. Brenda always seemed to have it together. She juggled a demanding career with a thriving social life and still managed to make time for yoga and meditation. You can't let him walk all over you, Sarah, she said, sipping her green smoothie. You deserve better. Brenda's words resonated. I did deserve better. I deserved to be a priority, not an afterthought. The day of the revenge arrived. Mr. Henderson, armed with his tools and a mischievous glint in his eye, arrived early. We worked in hushed whispers, carefully implementing his plan. It involved a strategically placed resistor, a slightly loosened connection, and a whole lot of technical mumbo-jumbo that I didn't fully understand. The goal was to create a temporary electrical issue that would cause Mark's PC to malfunction at the most inopportune moments. No permanent damage, just inconvenience. That evening, Mark settled in for his usual gaming session. I watched from the kitchen, my heart pounding in my chest. It started subtly. A brief flicker of the screen, a momentary lag in the game. Mark grumbled, blaming the internet provider. Then, during a crucial raid, his PC completely froze. He swore loudly, slamming his fist on the desk. "What the hell is going on?" he roared. "Maybe the power's acting up," I said innocently, trying to suppress a smirk. He restarted his computer, his frustration mounting. He managed to rejoin the raid, only to have his game crash again minutes later. This time, he lost it. "This is unbelievable," he screamed. "This stupid computer is ruining everything." He stormed out of his office and into the living room, his face red with rage. "What's wrong with the electricity in this house? It keeps cutting out." I looked him straight in the eye. "Maybe it's not the electricity, Mark. Maybe it's you." The floodgates opened. He accused me of sabotaging his gaming. I confronted him with the truth, the hours he spent online, the lies he told, the way he'd been ignoring me. "You're addicted," I yelled. "You're addicted to that stupid computer. And it's ruining our marriage." The argument raged for hours. Tears were shed, accusations were hurled, and years of pent-up frustration finally exploded. Mark slept on the couch that night. The house was filled with a thick, suffocating silence. The next morning, things were even worse. Mark was withdrawn and sullen. I felt a mix of guilt and satisfaction. Had I gone too far? That afternoon, David, Mark's gaming buddy, came over. I overheard their conversation in the backyard. "Dude, you've been acting like a total jerk lately," David said. "Maybe you need to take a break from the game. It's not worth losing everything over." I held my breath, listening intently. David's words seemed to have an effect on Mark. He looked thoughtful, almost ashamed. That night, I found Mark hunched over his computer, not playing a game, but Googling video game addiction. He took several online quizzes, his face growing increasingly grim. He came to me later, his eyes red-rimmed. I think you might be right," he said quietly. "I think I have a problem." He apologized for his behavior, admitting that he'd been neglecting me and our relationship. He said he wanted to change, that he wanted to be the man I deserved. I hesitated, then took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you," I said, and I told him everything. About Mr. Henderson, about the IT technician, about my desperate attempt to get his attention. He listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he didn't yell or get angry. He just looked sad. "So you actually sabotaged my computer?" he asked softly. "Yes," I said, "but only because I felt like I was losing you." He pulled me into a hug, a real hug, the kind I hadn't felt in months. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," he whispered. "I didn't realize how much I was hurting you." Mark started attending online support groups for gaming addiction. He began to limit his PC usage, setting strict time limits and prioritizing spending time with me. We started going to couples therapy to address the underlying issues in our relationship and learn healthy communication strategies. It was hard work, but we were both committed to making it work. We rediscovered shared hobbies. We started hiking again, something we both used to love. We took cooking classes, learning to make authentic Italian food, no more microwaved lasagna. We even started planning a vacation, something we hadn't done in years. A few weeks later, Mr. Henderson came over for coffee. As he was leaving, he winked at me. "That electrical problem seems to have resolved itself," he said, a mischievous glint in his eye. That evening, I found Mark in the kitchen, humming to himself as he chopped vegetables. He looked up and smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "You know," he said, "I was thinking we could watch a movie tonight. Your choice." I smiled back. "I'd like that very much." He went back to chopping, and I leaned against the counter, watching him. He was still using his PC, but in a balanced and healthy way. He scheduled his gaming sessions and made sure to prioritize spending time with me. Our relationship wasn't perfect, not by a long shot, but it was getting better. We were talking again, laughing again, connecting again. 6 months passed. Mark was doing so well. I was so proud of him. He rarely gamed, and when he did, he would often ask if I wanted to watch or if he was intruding on my time. It was a complete 180. One night, I was scrolling through my phone when a notification popped up. It was from the monitoring software I had completely forgotten I installed months ago. It showed Mark was online at 3 a.m., playing a game I thought he had quit entirely. I stared blankly at the screen.